Welcome back, guys. Thanks for taking the time to spend a little time with me. I always appreciate that. And as we approach Madden 23, it's right around the corner. Everyone is giving their feedback now as far as gameplay, how they feel about it if they played the beta. They've given their feedback on the franchise features, what's coming, returning, or rehashed, all of the above. Now that, this particular video you see here in the background, the franchise deep dive has been presented. And what I want to do, man, before the game launches is I want to give you some of my bigger features, the biggest features that I feel that are still missing from franchise mode going into 23, because these are the things that are more important to me. There's a laundry list of things that I'm sure a lot of you guys would want to see in franchise mode as well as I do. But just seeing how this thing is playing out, I'm going to address the things that I want to see addressed sooner than later going forward. I need to see these things, and most of the things that I'm going to mention are pretty much, some form of it is kind of in the game, and they can build off of it, right? And I think I'm only going to address about 4 things, just to keep it a short list. But what I want you guys to do is I want you to give me your list in the comments as well. I'm really interested to see, how we all feel, all of us franchise guys, what are the more urgent features. And do this favor for me as well. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but watch the entire video. Watch the entire video and call it a shameless plug, whatever. I don't understand why we don't watch entire videos. I do. When I watch a YouTube video, I watch the entire video because you may miss some very key information. I may answer a question that you have, or I may talk about something that you wanted to hear. But if you only watch the video for the first 2 minutes, or if you just come to a video to leave a comment, what is the point? So yes, shameless plug there. I'm telling you to watch my entire video. All right? So let's get into it. The very first thing I'm going to talk about, scouting. Scouting needs to be more robust. And like I said, with scouting, there's a form of it that, of course, is already in the game now. The scouting update came in Madden 22. The same scouting is here in Madden 23. They've added a few additions, but to me, they just didn't do enough. It's just not enough. There's so many other things I feel like they could do with scouting, and it needs to be important. There needs to be a severe impact when you don't scout a guy. Now, on the flip side of that, if you don't scout a guy, maybe you take a chance, you get a hunch, and you still pick a good player based off of what measurables you have. But I do feel like there should be more penalty involved, more risk reward if you don't scout a guy. And I think there should be more activity with scouting weekly. It shouldn't be so locked in where it's just at this particular time, here's the mock draft 1. And at this particular time, mock draft 2, and so forth. And at this point, now you need to assign your scouts here. Like, it's so mechanical. It needs to be so much more life. There needs to be something about scouting weekly. We need to send our scouts to important games, in certain conferences. Say there's a big matchup. Say it's Michigan, Ohio State. Just pick a huge matchup. And you want to send your scout to that game because there's key players on both sides of the ball for both teams. You might get an advantage by sending your area scouts to that game versus other teams in the league that might not go to that game. You understand what I'm saying? Needs to be things like that. Bowl games or big matchups or just key matchups. Or let's just say there's an opportunity to scout a team that's close to your facility and it's a big game. You can choose whether you want to send your scout there. Little stuff like that will make the scouting feel fresh and make it important and give you the reward for doing, going the extra mile. We need to see all of this stuff. I know there's a little bit of text in the game now that says, oh, do you want to do a private workout? Or there's text that shows pro day ratings or pro day, what do you want to call it? Results, right? But how about actually having that information in the game where you can literally say, I'm going to send this guy to the pro day. I'm going to send this scout to the combine. What about actually having the combine? See, now, All of this stuff to me falls under scouting. There's so much left on that bone. And I just feel like it's too bare bones right now, and it's too little to do. There's not enough effect for not scouting, in my opinion. Now, once we play Madden 23, maybe there is a little more effect. So maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I kind of feel like it's not. I don't feel the risk-reward factor from scouting or not scouting. And again, there needs to be more to do. Way more to do with scouting on a weekly basis. Okay, the next thing I'll talk about is contract structure. This one is very simple for me. The contract structuring is just too basic. There's no real front loading. There's no real back loading. Now, it looks like they are kind of going down that line now where they're giving you presets, right? Where you could do, the team friendly or the player friendly or right around, right in the middle or the average, yada, yada, yada. But it's still not set up the way it's set up in the NFL, where let's take, a controversial topic. Let's use this as an example. Look at what the Browns are trying to do with Deshaun Watson, where they're going to essentially have his first season of his contract. His base salary is literally $1 million. So only like $1 million is counting against, his salary or what have you, cap or what have you. I don't know the full language, but essentially if he got suspended for the entire season, he only loses $1 million out of the 230 guaranteed. See what I'm saying? You can't do that in Madden. You can't do that in Madden, and not just being a biased Steeler fan here, but Steeler fans know exactly what I'm talking about because for years under Kevin Colbert, kicking the can down the road was the way that they did business. Omar Khan might do some of that as well because he was the numbers guy with Kevin Colbert. You can't really do that to to the fullest extent in Madden. Now, I understand it's a video game, and I understand you want to have a few parameters, but still, you need to be able to structure contracts and get very unique with it. And let's find out who can be these virtual GMs, if you will, and who can outsmart and outwit the other teams, especially if you're playing in an online franchise. But you can't do that. There's no voidable years, none of that type of stuff. None of the contract structures that are in the NFL, like those, very detailed and creative, you can't do that in Madden. And why not? Why not? You were able to do those type of things years before in previous Maddens. And if I'm not mistaken, and somebody correct me if I'm mistaken, but if I'm not mistaken, I think you could do stuff like that in head coach as well. But I definitely know that it was in previous Maddens. Why can't we do that now? You see what I'm saying? And again, guys, these are not new features in terms of groundbreaking. This is stuff that is currently in the game that's just limited. But it's very important. Very important. Number 3 on my list. Wear and tear. You guys have heard me talk about this for years. I've done previous videos about it. I've used graphics from 2K that shows the wear and tear on the body. I've also explained that this feature was in Head Coach 09. So EA essentially did it years ago. And I thought we were getting closer to it because now in Madden, introduced in Madden 22, the progressive fatigue, I thought, okay, here's the first step. So I was hoping going into Madden 23, now you would have wear and tear to go along with the progressive fatigue. Now the progressive fatigue is phenomenal as far as the idea. Shout outs to my guy Shopmaster. My man Shopmaster talked about this for years. He talked about it down in EA. I have been in the office with him and have heard him say it numerous times. So I was happy that features like that Shop and guys like myself had been asking for years finally made it into the game. However, it's bare bones. It doesn't feel dynamic. It kind of feels very, very basic. And to some degree, it kind of feels like you can semi-manipulate it if you tweak your settings the way you want it, you know? Excuse me. If you tweak the settings a certain way, you can kind of get it to where that doesn't really affect you. But imagine if you added body wear and tear along with progressive fatigue. So now you have to worry about a guy not only getting tired, but his body is wearing down. He's taken one too many hits on that leg. Certain quarterback has taken one too many hits on that shoulder. It may be wise to keep him out of this week's game because this game isn't as important. The risk of playing him is a bigger risk. You understand what I'm saying? Guys like myself who are hardcore franchise guys would love all this type of decision making and all of this off of the field stuff that you have to do that affects the on-field performance. But just think about that. You got to literally make decisions each week. Even though the big decisions has been in Madden for the last few franchise, years, but y'all know it, again, it's cut and dry. You want to bring him back early, and if you bring him back early, it's the same old injury risk is high. It's just the big decision doesn't really have a real impact, or you can't really play a guy injured and take a little bit of risk. Like saying, you know what, shoulder's hurting a little bit, but I'm going to transit one more game. Can't really do that. It's so cut and dry in the game right now. So like I said, the idea, progressive fatigue, goes right in line with what we're looking for in terms of wear and tear. So now you just need to add that wear and tear component. This needs to happen sooner than later. Okay, and the last one. You guys have heard me say this numerous times as well. Practice needs to have more of an impact on players weekly. And what I mean by impact is there needs to be some type of option where players can shoot up the depth chart because of their practice. If you choose to practice, right, in scrimmage or what have you, and you have a guy that performs and he's just hot that week, maybe you decide to play him in the game. Maybe he practiced a little better than another guy. You maybe you have two guys that are kind of neck and neck at one position, but this particular guy had a better week of practice. So you give him a go. And his attributes can temporarily increase based on practice. Just like now, you know how you play the game and every now and then in certain attributes you get a +2 or +3 because of performance. Let's get this over to practice as well. So then guys like myself who would spend a ton of time in franchise, if you practice, you're rewarded. And at the same time, negative practice can affect guys as well. I would love that. So now you have to decide when and when not to practice. Again, a piece of this is already in the game, right? They introduced the Madden 22, full pads or half pads. You see what I'm saying? All of this stuff is kind of lightly on the surface, but they just didn't go full blown with it. So how about throw that in as another decision? Man, do we hit this week? And if we do, what other risks are associated with putting on the pads, not just injury? You understand what I'm saying? One guy might perform and show out. He shows that he's a more physical corner. He's taking more chances. He's more aggressive with his PBUs. And you're like, whoa, where's this coming from? Right? So now the ratings of the player can tie into that. You know how you have some players who might have let's say a 71 overall, but maybe he's a 90 in press. So maybe you give him an opportunity to show that value in practice. Put him in those situations and he's performing. Boom, he gets a mini boost because now he has his confidence, his morale. See all of this stuff that's supposed to be in the game, quote unquote, the morale rating. Now his morale is high. He's going to go perform. But also, here's the risk reward. You might put a guy in too soon. He gets in the game, gets roasted, or has a terrible game. Now his morale shifts again. See what I'm saying? You see how fluid that can be? Come on, man. This stuff would just take the game to another level. And again, these are just basically 4 categories that I'm talking about here. There's way more other stuff. But again, I'll use a Steeler example. Most Steeler fans would understand how people felt about James Pierre last year. Man, he's showing up in practice. Man, he's having a strong camp. Man, he played in that game against Cleveland, the last game of the season, and he showed up, had a couple PBUs. So now everyone is pumped up, and he's going to get a chance to play. He plays in 2021. Last season, doesn't do so well. Started having some moments where it wasn't so favorable. Lost his confidence. He got pulled out of the lineup. See how that works organically? Would love to have that type of impact in franchise mode. It's right there. So again, these are the categories that I think are the most important to me at the moment. And I'm sure there's 1,000 things that we all want. These are not the only things I want, but I want to see these things addressed really soon. And here's another one I'll throw in there just for honorable mention. Training camp. Training camp. We got to have some type of training camp because that goes right along with what I just said about practice, right? We got to have that. And here's what you do. Anything that you enable, give us the option to customize the experience. We can decide if we want to do it manually, if we want it to be auto, or how about give people the decision to decide what type of franchise they want. Do they want the full experience? Do they want a condensed experience? Do they want a play-only experience? You see what I'm saying? So that, therefore, people who don't want to do all that stuff can still play franchise mode, but they can turn all of those extra things off if they choose. Because we currently have a lot of features in franchise now that you can customize, auto or manual. So that's how you do it. To me, this is just, it's got to happen that way. That's how you create depth and you keep people plugged in, especially your offline players as well as the online players. But like I said, for online, you can kind of customize some of that stuff, strip it down a little bit if you don't want to spend that much time. If you don't want your league to have to worry about that because you already have like a 48-hour advance, cool. We can customize what things we want to allow and what things we don't. But for offline, you must have these things. All right, so that's my list right there, man. I'm sorry for having the video run so long, but listen, I hope it was worth it. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Chop it up in the comments, and I look forward to reading that. All right, but before we get out of here, of course, I'm going to remind you, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.